One. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here today to learn all about UV resin, specifically about making really, really simple earrings with UV resin. So if you're new to UV resin, new to jewelry making, this is the class for you. We're going to walk you through all the steps, all the supplies, all of the timing, and everything that you need to know about this magical material. So my name is Stephanie Menor, and I'm going to be your teacher today. So let's switch to the other camera and take a look at some of the projects we're going to be making today. Hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for putting a comment, telling us where you're from. Please do use the chat throughout the class. If you have questions, we have people to answer your questions. If I happen to see your question, I will answer it live for you. So these are some of the earring projects that we're going to make. And these are all very, very simple to make. They are all made with molds, silicone molds. So a shape like this heart shape, will come out perfectly every time because it's a mold and you can use it over and over and over again. These projects all use clear resins. So notice that they're all clear in the background and they've got stuff in there. So this one has some like confetti glitter. This one has beads in there. Those are seed beads. You can see they go all the way through. This one actually has real candy sprinkles. They are so cute. And this one has dried flowers that we've cut up into smaller little bits there. So these four materials are just a fraction of the materials that you can use with UV resin. And so we're going to walk you through what you can and can't put inside the resin. But spoiler alert, almost everything you can put in resin. And we'll do a whole laundry list of what you can decorate it with. So let me clear this. And first we'll just walk through some supplies that you need and some precautions. So first thing I have, this blue thing is actually a silicone mat. And everything that I'm going to show you is sold at Michael's. This mat has a matte, M-A-T-T-E side and a shiny side, and you can use it on either side. And then we, of course, have the basics, which is the UV resin itself. So this is what UV resin looks like. It comes in a couple different size bottles at Michael's, but you notice that there's just one bottle. There's not two bottles where you need to mix them together and stir and make all of those bubbles and stuff. That is a lot more difficult. You'll find that if you've done the two-part resin in the past, you'll find that UV resin is just a little bit easier because there's no mixing, there's no bubbles. You pour it right into what you're going to do. So that is the resin. And then we have here a lamp. So this will turn on when I hit the button, and it plugs in to a USB cord. So usually, you can plug that into your computer or to a wall charger. But the button on the top runs it for 1 minute and then it automatically turns off. Then I have some other tools. I've got some wood sticks here. I've got all of my things that I'm going to put down inside the resin. We call those fillers. So here are like what the flowers look like in store. We're going to be using those, and I have some of the little confetti glitters over there. And then I have a bunch of silicone molds. So Michael's has a wide selection of these. They may look like this, which is flat. You'll see the Blue Moon name on the side there. That's why you know you're getting a great quality silicone mold. It's very clear. You'll see the clear is important when you're dealing with UV resin because this is a product that's cured with UV light. That's why it's called UV resin. And the UV light comes from our little lamp here. So these are clear, they're very flexible, and they have all sorts of shapes in there for earring making. This one has hoops. This one has some wider kind of hoop shapes. So you'll notice, like I said, they're very clear. do not be tempted by other silicone molds that may be in other departments. This is a silicone mold in like the candy making department. And they have really cute shapes over there too, but it's not going to work with UV resin because it's solid, it's opaque. You need to use a clear silicone mold for it to work and for it to cure properly. Okay, so those are silicone molds. What else do we need here? Well, we have some other things that I'm going to show you at the end of the class, if we have time. So, like I said, all of our projects are clear, but at the end of the class, I'm going to show you slightly more advanced. We're going to get into how do you add color. We're going to get into some little more advanced techniques. So let's just get started with this basic technique. So I'm going to get started with this mold. And this mold makes two different kinds of earrings. So it makes this flat, wide hoop, and it makes this heart hoop. So you can see like this came out of that mold there. And then after we're done, we add the earring piece, and that's how obviously you wear it. We have a few different hoops. I showed you this is kind of more of a standard hoop. This hoop makes shapes that look like this. It's like a square hoop in two sizes. So just a different kind of hoop. So with this one, and then notice it also has some little teardrop shapes. That's if you want to make stud earrings or use that as a charm. Okay, well, let's just jump right in. Oh, some precautions. Number one, you don't want to work in front of an open window where sunlight is streaming through. That is UV light, and UV light will start to cure what you're doing before you want it to. So pull the curtains, pull the shades on that. And if you have sensitive skin, use gloves. There's nothing wrong with doing that. All right, let's get into it. So here's our mold. The great thing about working with molds is that it's the same every single time. So I'm going straight from my bottle, straight into the mold. And I'm just putting a good amount in there. I'm filling it roughly about halfway. And you'll see, I'm going to bring this close. You know, you may get a couple air bubbles like this one right here. And the way to deal with that is just pop it. That's the easiest way. But you're not going to get all of those bubbles like you do get with two-part resin. Also, another supply I didn't mention is I always keep some paper towels off to the side, and that's just so that I can use that to wipe off my tools. All right, so I like to take a wood stick and kind of just get that into the corners of the mold. And we don't have to be precise here. I'm just kind of want to make sure it's covered. So right now this mold is about halfway full. And we're going to add, this is what we're making. We're going to add candy sprinkles. These are real candy sprinkles from the grocery store. One of many, many different products that you can use with UV resin. We're just going to sprinkle them in. And you can add as many or as little as you want. You can do kind of an ombre effect where they're more clustered in one corner. Let's get some in there, then go in with your wood stick and just move them around. So you can really just take your time here. UV resin, this won't cure until you expose it to UV light. So you have all the time in the world to work with this. And you can leave it on your desktop and come back to it tomorrow. You can leave it for weeks and come back to it, and it's still going to be liquid. At that point, you do want to make sure you're not getting any dust in there. But the point is that this is not going to start hardening until you're ready for it. All right, so I've got those pretty well. I lost my paper towel already. Oh, here. Pretty well spread out there. And I'm gonna go at it again, but I want to add a little bit of resin. And you just want to add resin until the compartment is full. And I know it's hard to see because it's clear, but you'll start to get a feel for it and you'll be able to see better when you have this in person. But I just added some more dots. I got one more air bubble here and I'm going to pop that. If you can't pop it, what you can do is kind of scoop it out. There it is. All right, and right now I'm just looking at it and making sure that all of those little bits are where I want them to be. And when I'm happy with that, and of course you would make the second earring too. Here's the second earring right up here. Then I bring my lamp in and I hit the button. Like I said, that runs that for 1 minute and it will automatically turn off. And then you may need to run it for multiple minutes. So let's talk about cure times. So with a project like the one that we're making here, we have clear resin with some things in it. So that only is going to take maybe 2 minutes or so, 2-3 minutes to cure. If I would have added a ton of glitter or sand, something that's going to block the light, if I would have added tint in there that's very dark, again, that's blocking the light. So you want to change your cure times depending on the specific project. If you have a lot of things blocking the light, you may need 5 minutes cure time. But typically for something like this, it will be about 2 to 3 minutes, let's say. So now that automatically turned off. I'm going to hit the button again and I'm going to let that run again. But actually, let me turn it off and just show you. The top layer of this is already cured. Like I can tap on it. It's already cured. It starts to harden after about 15 seconds. So let's just let that go for another minute. And so that's cure times with this light. This is a 9-watt UV light. You will find a lot more powerful lights out there, ones to do your nails. I'm sure we've seen these like at the nail salon. You just want to be careful. You don't want to go above maybe 36 watts because what you'll find is the resin might start to smoke. Like you're curing it too hard, too fast. And we don't want that. So you really just need a small amount of wattage here to be effective. If you would like to cure this in the beautiful natural UV rays of the sun, go ahead and do that. If you live in a sunny place, if you have a sunny windowsill, just leave them on the windowsill. And on a sunny day, it may only take 5 to 10 minutes in pure sun. If it's a cloudy day, it will still cure because there's still UV light in the air when it's cloudy. That may take 20 minutes, a half an hour. You'll have to judge depending on where you are, what the sunlight's like, and what time of year it is. But curing outside is a great thing to do. You just can't match the sort of powerful UV rays from the sun. All right, so this has gone 2 full cycles. I can push this up and you can see like that's ready to pop out. Okay, but I'm just going to wait a second here because this is warm. So you'll find that when you cure with a light, it will be warm. And that's just the heat from the chemical reaction that's taking place. So you want to make sure that it's cooled a little bit before popping it out because you can bend it a little if it's not fully cured. And we want this to be perfectly flat. All right, I'm impatient, so I'm going to go. You can see just pushing through the back, and this thing wants to come out of there. And this is what it looks like. You get a perfectly glass-like finish because this face was down inside the mold. And it's perfectly smooth and clear. On this side, this is the side that was facing me. It's not as perfect. You can kind of see along the edges. It's just not as perfect. So I always like to remember when things come out of a mold that there's a good side and a bad side. The good side was the one that was down in there. All right, so this doesn't have any tackiness, but if you have some surface tackiness at this point, just put it back under the light and let it do its thing for a little bit longer. All right, so this is our first piece, and we do have to add the hardware, but I'm going to show you that after we make the next earring. We'll do both earrings together, but this is really, really done. Let's go for number 2. So number 2, very, very similar, but we're going to use this heart shape here. And I'm going to put a little bit of resin down in the bottom, again, pouring directly from the bottle. And we are going to put beads. So this is just a little bag of sorted seed beads. It's a great way to use up leftover beads from another project. If you're a beader, you always are going to have some leftover beads. And I'm trying to think about the best way to get these in there. I think what I'm going to use is, this is a silicone cup. Also sold at Michael's. It's sold as like a little mixing kit. You get the cup and you get these little wood sticks in there too. So it's a great thing to have. I'm just going to use this cup because I can kind of pour pretty precisely from that cup. And let's pour them in. And these are assorted colors, obviously, but you could do an ombre effect here where you're starting with a dark blue and working to a light blue. You can do all kind of clear or clear iridescent, would look really beautiful. All right, so I'm gonna pick up these beads that went all over and put them in there. I just want to make sure it's fully filled, but I don't want any of the beads popping up through the plane of the mold. So because I don't want my earring when it's done to be bumpy. I want it to be totally smooth. All right, let's fill her in. Are you holding your breath? Because I was holding my breath during that. And then I just go in with a wood stick and I'm kind of just moving the beads around. You know, these beads, they're small, they've got holes in them. We just want to make sure the resin is fully incorporated in and through and around every single bead, and that we don't have any popping up. And if I needed to, I can scoop some of these out. There's one that just stuck to my stick. Let's get that off of there. If I've overcrowded my mold, I can just pop them right out. Okay. All right. I like it. I think we're ready. So I bring my lamp in here, and I will also show you there is a flashlight option. Here's like the flashlight. You can hit the button and that comes on. The flashlight is good because it's more mobile than something like this that has to plug in. It's not quite as strong, but it is a great tool to kind of have in your repertoire. Okay. So I'm going to let this go. I'm actually going to let this go more than 2 minutes because we're blocking the light with those beads. And so we just want to make sure, and this is something I'll probably rotate the mold a little bit. I want to make sure I'm hitting all angles here. All right, so while that's curing, I'm going to show you options. Okay, here is the earlier, okay, that went, let me turn it back on. Here's the earlier shape that we made. And this is done with some beautiful dried flowers arranged perfectly inside that shape. So that is a great option. I'll show you some of these. Here is a hoop earring. And this is that ombre effect that I was talking about. We start out with a light blue, go into darker blue, and then into purple. I'll show you how to tint things here at the end of class. Here's a hoop made with little pink dried flowers. And these ones are special. Can anyone guess what these are? I don't know. This is a wonderful technique that I love to show in classes because we don't want to waste. We're crafters, we don't want to waste a single thing. So what that is I've taken my resin scraps. Like sometimes I'll have a piece of resin like this that has cured, but was like stuck to something else. I just save that in a little bag. This is still good because I can cut this up and make my own little confetti. And when you have that of a bunch of different colors, you can put that confetti inside and look how pretty that looks. So pro tip, always save your little bits because you will find a use for them. Okay, so this has gone for, I've lost track. Is it 2 minutes? I'm not sure. Let's check it out. So it is warm and it looks like it wants to come out of there. So let's go ahead. It's not too warm. All right, let's go ahead and pop that out. And this is what it looks like. And see, it has this little dingly dangle thing. I don't know, a little extra bit of resin there. That may happen when you're working with molds and you can just kind of, it wants to break off like cleanly. So if you find that, sometimes I just go along the edge with my nail and like it wants to assume this perfect form. And this is what it looks like. And this is, you know, I'm doing this in real time. So that's how long it takes to make. The only thing we have to do is add the hardware. Let's bring my first one in. And I'm going to show you what that hardware looks like. This is an earring post that has a blank pad on it. So normally when you see them in stores, they're about this size. I think this is an 8mm pad. Now, when you buy these molds, we have already included for you the hardware. And the hardware that's included has got a smaller head to it. Look at the side by side. This is 8mm. This is 4mm. So you need something with that smaller pad because it's got to fit here. And that's a small little space. Okay. So how do we attach it? We just use more UV resin. So straight out of the bottle, I'm just going, now this is a silicone mat. Do not put this on your desk or your treasured furniture. This is a silicone mat that I use specifically. So I can put the resin, a little dot of it directly on the mat. And then the easiest way is just to pick up the little finding and dip it in there, dip it and place it. And when you have it exactly where you want it to go, bring the light in and just hold it. And it's going to start to grip in just maybe even 5-10 seconds. And it's as simple as that, adding the post. So you don't need to buy a separate glue. UV resin by itself is a wonderful glue, wonderful adhesive to use in all different applications. I've fixed so many things with UV resin because it bonds to plastic and glass and porous materials, non-porous materials, and makes a very strong bond. All right, so it's grabbed to the point where I can set that down now. And let's put our other end on. I'll do it one more time. Now this little bit, oh, can you see that? This little bit started to cure because it was to the light here, but you can see like the top is cured and there's some uncured at the bottom here, but let me put another little dot. Take my little piece here and you add it to whichever size. I mean, this is a symmetrical shape, so I could add it to this side or this side. I'm going to add it right up here. And it's going to want to move around a little bit. So once you see it in the place you want, immediately bring the light in. This is a great use also of the flashlight, which I'm going to switch to. And I'm just kind of moving it around. You want to make sure those light rays hit that. And the other thing you want to make sure is it's not like a glue that's going to dry. Any UV resin that's under this pad will never ever see the UV light, and so it won't cure. So really what you're doing is you're curing the resin that's around that pad. That's why I say to dunk it in the little spot of resin, because you're going to get it all up and around those edges, because that's really what you're curing here. Okay. All right, so we have 2 earrings made. You can see how simple this project is. And you also get the little earring backs, so those go on the back there. And now you have an earring. Oh, that didn't go on right. There we go. Perfect. Wonderful. Are you guys with me? Are you excited? Do we have anyone crafting along with us? Hopefully we do. I love it when you guys make things with us. If anybody wants to share, turn on their camera if you're brave enough, we would love to see it. All right, so we do have a couple other projects, but I think you guys have the gist of it now. So this is the exact same techniques. It's a mold. It's just, in this case, we're putting glitter in it. And we're adding, instead of it being sort of a stud metal piece that we're adding a dangly bit. So I'm going to show you how to do the dangly bit. And I'm going to show you with this piece. This is a piece that we made from, I'll show you the mold that it came out of. Right there. So this was actually down inside there. And we used pink tint and we used some white flowers. And so we got this shape. Now you'll notice that it has a hole at the top. That hole is created by this little silicone peg. So notice when you are buying your molds, if it has those pegs or not. If it doesn't, no problem. We can drill a hole. But that's what makes that hole shape there. All right, so I'm going to show you, if you have used your mold to make something like this, how to turn that into an earring. So you are going to need a little jewelry plier, and you're going to need something called a jump ring. That's a jump ring. They sometimes come like this, where you get a bunch of different sizes. It's one of the basic building blocks of jewelry. So the jump ring has a break up at the top, and I can hold it with one hand and pliers on the other side of that break. And I bend it, bring one toward me and one away from me. So we're bending it into more of a coil shape. And I use that to go through. But before I close that, I add the rest of my hardware, which is one of these little earring posts. Add that on there. And now I need to close this. I close it in the opposite direction that I opened it. I'm actually, instead of using my fingers, I'm going to use a second tool here and close that up. And that's simple. you now have a dangle earring. So far, you know how to make hoop earrings with UV resin. You know how to make any type of dangle earring with UV resin. Cool, huh? Pretty simple. All right, so I think we've covered the basics. You'll notice this just pops right off of my silicone mat because it's silicone. That's why the molds are made of silicone. That's why our tools and our mixing cups are made of silicone, because resin, when it's hardened, it will not stick to silicone. So here's our mixing cup. So now that you know how to work with molds, I just want to expand your knowledge a little bit in this class and show you this example. So this is the example we just worked on. Like I said, this came out of a mold. This is the second most popular way that people use UV resin. First, I think, is molds. They tend to use it in molds. But you can also use it in this thing, which is a frame, a metal frame, and it's called a bezel. I see the question in the comment in the chat. Can you show me adding the back again? And I will absolutely do that for you. Let me do that first and come back to it. So here are some stud earrings. All of these have that same back. You can see it has that flat pad back. So you use that finding to make hoops, but also to make any type of a stud, cute little stud earring. Little moon. I'm looking for a shape that I can add something to. Just a sec here. Let's see. We will do that as soon as I find a shape that I have molded. Well, I can't find it. So you know what? We're just gonna have to make one. Let's do that. All right, we're just gonna use this tiny little teardrop here. I'm gonna add that, and then I'm gonna put something in there. Let's use more of our sprinkles. Actually, let's try something new. Here we go. So you can use any type of glitter, glass glitter, polyester glitter, any size. You can get the really ultra fine glitters, chunky glitters, and I'm just putting some in there. I'm not really being super careful about what I'm doing, but that's because I'm an extremely impatient crafter. That's why UV resin works perfectly for me, because I hate waiting. And I hate anything that's too overly complicated. All right, so I added some glitter, I added some more resin, and now we have a shape here. Let's add some more glitter just so that it looks more opaque. Let's fill that up all the way. All right, let's let that cure while I continue talking about the bezels. Okay, so as I said, this one came from a mold. This one came from a bezel. I want to show you how to work with bezels, because if you as an intro class, we want to make sure we're showing you all the most important and basic techniques. Did I lose you for a minute? I'm sorry about that. I'm back. I don't know if you could hear my audio during that time, but I was talking. So I want to show you, this is an intro class. So I want to show you the two most popular ways of working with this product. So one is a bezel. These are bezels. So you buy them like this, and they are just frames. And to use these bezels, you need another supply, which is this tape here. So this is a special tape that you use with UV resin. And let's just cut off a little piece of it. So it's stuck to my finger. I am going to use this oval shape and stick it down onto the sticky side of the tape. Okay, so that's stuck there. And you can really use your finger to make sure it's stuck because that attachment is what's going to stop your resin from leaking out everywhere. Let's put a few drops of resin. So right now we're just preparing the bezel. A few drops of resin, and I make sure that that is going to the edges and making contact. And now I want to pre-cure. All right, this one is ready to pop out, but let's let that cool for just a sec. So these are the steps of working with bezels. Select the bezel that you want, cut a little piece of tape, stick it on there, and then do a first layer of resin. Once you have that first layer done, like kind of the sky's the limit to decorating on top of that. You've already secured the bezel, nothing's going to leak out. So then you can just design on top of that. And while we're waiting for that to cure, let me show you a couple of things here. Here's an example. This is a bezel where we use some dried flowers and a dark background. Here's a bezel where we use dried flowers and a glittery white background. All right, so this is ready to go. This is ready for me to do whatever I want inside this bezel. I can add dried flowers, which dried flowers are pretty popular. So why don't we go ahead and do some dried flowers? Let's see. I have some here. These, again, sold at Michael's. I'm going to dump some of these out. They are very, very delicate, but we have several different colors in here. See, there's a pink, yellow, blue. So these are like kind of like baby's breath, I guess, or lace flower. I want to cut them down. So I can just go straight in with some scissors, and I'm basically cutting this into like flower confetti, kind of cutting it around the center. And let's add some of this as well. Very, very delicate. And then I can just place, just with one little dot of resin there, I can place those little pieces of dried flowers. Just bring them in, place them where I want them to go. I don't want that piece. Okay. And if I'm running out of resin in that, I can just add a little bit more. Help make things a little more liquid. Okay, so I don't have like a rhyme or reason of how I'm laying these down. Kind of mixing the blue and the white just for an overall pattern. And once I have those where I want them to go, I can always cure in layers. Curing in layers is your friend in UV resin. Um, it's always better to do small thin layers than to dump a whole bunch of resin in there and just hope for the best. So layers are your friend. And never forget that you don't need to fully cure each layer. Like that layer, I probably only left on for about 30 seconds. And the only reason I did that is because I already spent time placing those flowers where I want them to go. I want them to stay there before I put my final coat on. You can achieve a little bit of a dome here. I see a bubble. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I see a bubble. I'm trying to get it. There's one single bubble right here. All right, let's cure. And that is how we work with bezels. So, um, it's up to you if you want to start, if you're just starting on your UV resin journey, up to you if you want to start with molds or if you want to start with bezels. You get a little bit of a different look with each one. I think that with the molds, you get a little bit more of a modern type of a look because it doesn't have any type of edge to it. And with the bezels, you get a little more of a traditional look. I'm going to let this cure off to the side. And I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I want to make sure I'm showing you all these things. Here's that piece that I made earlier. Let's just pop that out. You can see the side of it. And let's add a backing. I'm going to use this wider little pad. And in this case, I can just add the resin directly to the back of this piece. Sometimes it helps to use pliers to pick up this little guy. But when I seat him in there, making sure I'm getting that resin up on the edges. You can even use your wood stick, kind of place that exactly where you want it to go, making sure that that liquid resin has come up over the edges. That's really what's going to hold this. And then cure it. I'm going to move that to the side. So here's what we did. Now I did get a little bit of funkiness here. See this? That's like a little bit of a bubble appeared. That has never happened to me before. I don't know why I got that, but it just kind of proves that no matter what craft you do and no matter how good you are at that craft, weird things happen. But you can kind of see if I go like this, there's just a little bit of a imperfection and a bubbling that happened on that final layer. So it could be that I was a little hasty in that final layer, and when I laid it down, I somehow trapped air under there. That's likely what it is. That's just a little bit of air that I didn't see that's under there. But nonetheless, this is a good example of how to use bezels. So sorry, I just peeled that off of there. And this is what it is. If this happened to me in real life, honestly, what I would do is I would try to cover that with something. Like, I don't know, a sticker. Let's cover it. Let's put a sticker. And then I can do another coat of resin on top of that. Just my point here is that all is not lost. When things go wrong, you can make something out of that. All right, so since we're talking about bezels, I'll show you some bezels. This one has glitter background with some metal pieces in it. This one is actually a silhouette that I printed out of my son that I put inside resin. This key came out of a silicone mold. We molded it and popped it out of the mold and then put it inside of a bezel. Isn't that cool? So lots of different ways to work with bezels, just depending on if you like the look of it having a frame or not. All right, here's our piece that we just added the back to, and that is ready to wear. Okay, while we still have time, I wanted to show you how to add tint and color to resin. So that is where you're going to need a product that looks like this. They are resin tints, and it comes in a few different colors. This is the primary color mix. When you're using tints, you want to pre-mix that. You never want to put tints directly into a mold, so you want to mix them up. So we will add some resin to a silicone mixing bowl. And I am going to take my blue. You want to make sure you shake them. I'm not going to use blue. Actually, I changed my mind. Blue is the color of my background. I want you guys to see it. So let's do this magenta. All right, so I'm just going to add 1 drop. These tints are very, very concentrated, so go slowly. So 1 drop gets you kind of a very translucent, it's not really picking up on camera that well, but in person, it's a translucent pink. So let's add another drop. All right, so here you can see we're starting to build up the color. And you can mix these together. You can add a little drop of blue in this to make it more purple. And then you would use this in a mold. But why stop there when there's glitter in the world? Let's add a little bit of glitter. This is the better way to do this rather than dumping glitter into a mold. I love, if you're going to buy 1 glitter to work with UV resin, this is what I would recommend. It's like an iridescent, clear, white glitter, because that just sort of melts into whatever color you have it with and adds that iridescent sheen. So see what we have here? So cute. All right, let's get a mold. Let's do this art shape. And I'm going to show you, because my whole goal is I want to inspire you. I want to show you all of the different possibilities of this material. All right, so you see how I poured it in there? Just kind of in these little ends. Now I'm going to go straight from here with clear. This is how we're going to get an ombre effect. And I'm actually going to fill one of these shapes over here with clear. So I want to go in with my wood stick, and I'm just going to kind of tease this area where the pink and clear meet to make that a little more of a transition. And then, of course, I want to make sure that this mold is filled to the top. All right, looks good to me. Double check my little transition area. Okay. All right, let's cure it. So the reason I wanted to show you this one is I want to show you how to tint, how to add glitter in a mixing bowl, and then how to do an ombre effect. And now finally, I'm going to show you how to connect these two pieces together. These holes are earring toppers. And so I'll show you how to do that. I'm also including in here in the light my dirty silicone cup. This is the best way to clean it. Just cure it and it'll pop right out. You don't have to worry about digging in there and getting messy. I saw a question pop up in the chat about making larger items like bookmarks. You can make bookmarks with UV resin, but a word of caution. For very large open shapes like that, UV resin is best suited for small things, which is why UV resin in jewelry, it's just a match made in heaven. Jewelry is made of small things. These are very, like, look at the size to my finger. Like, these are small pieces. Anything that's bigger than maybe, I'd say, like a 2-inch square, you might want to look at another material for doing that. There are ways to do it with UV resin, creating bookmarks and so forth, but you may get some unevenness, some curling when it cures. UV resin is just better suited for small things. So keep that in mind as you use it. All right, so this is curing. I've got my little silicone bowl over here, still curing. And as that's going, and we just have a few minutes left, but I want to show you other options. So we've made earrings. We've made stud earrings, hoop earrings, dangle earrings. UV resin makes a lot more than earrings. How about bangles? These are bangle bracelets that come out of a bangle mold using the same little candy and the same seed beads. So you can make bracelets, you can make rings. Here are a bunch of rings that we made, making both the ring and then whatever focal piece you want on the ring. Here's a ring where we added some rhinestones. Here's our confetti technique of using leftover resin. So you can make rings, you can make necklaces. I'll show you, well, I already showed you this one, but it is a necklace. It's a bezel with a white background and a little bit of a glitter with dried flowers, but it's on a necklace chain. I just saw the thing pop up about, oh, I wanted to answer that question, but it went away. I'm so sorry. Hopefully we'll get an answer to you in the chat. All right, so this is gone for, oh gosh, a minute or so, 2 minutes, maybe. And on a shape like this, I definitely want to make sure that it's cooled, because if I pop this out, it seems like I can just pop that out, and I can. But with a shape like this, it's easy to bend it a little bit, taking it out of the mold, and you want to make sure that that's perfectly flat. So let's just let that cook for a little bit longer. What else do I have to show you? Oh, I have so many goodies over here. This one, let me just tell you. So everything that we've been doing in this whole class uses the standard type of UV resin, which is the hard type. There is another type of UV resin, and it is the soft type. And it makes things that look like this, things that are bendy. It turns into like a gummy bear texture. So just be mindful when you go shopping for UV resin that you're buying the hard type. All right, I think this is ready to go. Let's pop out this little topper first. So you notice that has a hole in the top. And now let's pop out this earring. This is what it looks like. And we will connect these two pieces together. And I'm going to connect them with a jump ring. My jump ring. I can just open it in the same way and use that to connect these two things together. and kind of just work that through there. And let's close it up. So I have the beginning of an earring. I still need a way to hang this on my ear. And so to do that, I would add another back. I've used all my little backs that I have though, but same technique as I showed you, adding that little stud back to it. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you getting all the way to the end. Here's how we clean up our silicone cup, by the way. This one isn't fully cured, but we can just pop that out. Great way to cure. If you do end up making something with UV resin, we would love to see what you make. You can post your creations with hashtag UV resin craft. Give me a follow on Instagram at Stephanie Menor Creates, and follow bluemoonstudio.co on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you go out there and make all of the beautiful things and join us again next time. Thanks a lot, everyone.